I'm so annoyed, y'all. Like I just gotta be real with y'all tonight. I'm so annoyed. The current sports news cycle is really irking the shit out of me. We're going to get into some of that tonight, but first, we're going to dive into this whole KaVontae Turpin situation. Just a few details that I want to make sure y'all are clear on, because I'm pretty sure everyone's heard about it in some general sense, but there's just a few details that I want to dive into with y'all, because y'all know how I am about my audience. I want to make sure that y'all are informed, that y'all aren't just like falling for the clickbait and the headlines, that y'all actually know what's going on, especially if we're going to follow this story. And there may or may not be some things to follow. So we'll dive into it. Um, Before I get into this intro, though, I want y'all to make sure y'all please like, subscribe, share, so on and so forth. Um, sorry, like I said, I'm just annoyed tonight. But yeah, and if there's anything else y'all want to talk about, feel free to throw it into the chat. I've got my on the chat. I'm not on Twitter tonight, so anybody watching should be on YouTube. I'll see your comments. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into this intro, and then we'll talk about KaVontae Turpin.
Queen bitch, supreme bitch, I'ma stay that bitch.
All right, so let's get into this. What is going on with KaVontae Turpin? As many of you, I'm sure, have heard, KaVontae Turpin was arrested over the weekend on Sunday for possession of marijuana and also unlawful carrying of a weapon. So I'm gonna give you all the details on that, and I'm gonna pull up some of the information about. I don't even want to call it a case, but really just some of the information that people might be pulling up, and just kind of set this record straight on what's what. So, KaVontae Turpin, for anyone who's watching me who is not a Cowboys fan, he is a member of the Dallas Cowboys, wide receiver. He's done some amazing things both as a receiver and on special teams. To sum it up nicely, so apparently he was booked on Saturday. So this news broke on Sunday, but he was booked on Saturday, and he was arrested for 2 misdemeanors in Allen, Texas. So those misdemeanors were possession of marijuana. They said it was less than 2 ounces, and then unlawful carrying of a weapon. So apparently there was a 9mm pistol, if I'm remembering the details correctly, that was on his back seat. So some people might be wondering, does this impact his season? Is this going to impact his status with the team? As far as his status with the team, I don't know. I don't believe so. I haven't heard anything suggesting that that would be the case. KaVontae Turpin has been in legal trouble before. Before he was with the Cowboys, during college, I believe, there was a situation that was it was related to domestic violence and someone that he was dating. And so he has been in legal trouble before, but I don't think that was recent enough or connected enough for any extreme actions to be taken, like suspension. I don't think so. Um, and right now, there's nothing pointing to anything that would lead to more severe charges. But what we do have, and let me go ahead and pull this up, is the status. Hold on, I gotta refresh this and then I'll pull it up. All right. So actually, I'm glad I caught this. I'm not going to pull this up on the screen because his address is on here and motherfuckers are crazy. But I will just tell y'all about the status and what it could possibly mean. So if you pull up the documents online, the first thing that it says is the case is closed. So there are some people who are saying that it's already closed. This is actually not the case. This is something that happens a lot of times when it comes to reporting, or I shouldn't say reporting, but when it comes to sharing the status of a case that's in the phase that his case is in. So there was a magistration hearing, which is basically where bond is decided. And from what was reported, it was $1,500, $1,000 for the marijuana, and $500 for the weapon. So there was that hearing. What was interesting to me in the case events is that there was an affidavit of indigency. Now, that is typically something that is filed when someone cannot afford the court costs, which I don't think is the case here. So I'm just pointing that out in case it's something that comes up later. So it's something that we can come back to as we follow this. But I thought it was interesting that that was on here. But I'm not going to jump to any conclusions based on that. Just know that that's something that is mentioned. Um, and then it lists who the judge was that oversaw the magistration hearing. So essentially, where we are now is he posted bail, but there hasn't been any sort of trial. Now, will there be? That all depends. And so that's the interesting part. There's an assumption that at some point this is going to have to go to trial, and he'll be penalized in some way. But when a case is in this phase, there's always a possibility that it could be dropped, it could be dismissed. The law enforcement personnel who are in charge of this kind of thing could simply choose not to pursue it. Those are all options that are on the table. But what I want y'all to be aware of is the fact that things could happen down the line later. So that way, if this comes up mid-season, people aren't thinking like, oh no, he got arrested again. No, it's very well that this could be quiet for months. And then all of a sudden, okay, he has to go to trial. Now, let's say he does go to trial, and real shit, I would not be surprised if he doesn't go to trial. I wouldn't be surprised if this just disappears, or if somehow this is quickly moved through the system and he pays a fine or something of that nature. None of that would surprise me. So if he does go to trial, what he's looking at, for the possession of marijuana, which was less than 2 ounces, that's a Class B misdemeanor. So the penalties are up to 180 days in county jail, and or a fine not exceeding $2,000. So some other potential consequences are driver's license suspension for about 6 months or so, probation for up to a year, community service, or completion of a drug treatment program or drug treatment classes. Um, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they said it was less than 2 ounces. I don't know if they weighed it, I don't know if they eyeballed it, but basically it's a small amount. So typically what they'll look for is like, okay, is it a small amount? Is it a large amount? Is it a usable amount? So in other words, if it was just something like residue that they noticed like on his lap or something, it's likely that that would have not been considered a usable amount, and this would not have been one of the charges. But what they found was what they considered a usable amount, yet less than 2 ounces. And so that's where we get into the, okay, he could be fined, he could have to go to jail. With this being, the first instance, at least on the record of this, I think it's highly likely that he ends up paying a fine, especially since considering his status as a member of a professional sports team. I think the assumption is that he'd be able to pay it. Like I said, there's that affidavit of indigency on file. I don't know what that's all about. Um, but I feel like once he finds legal representation, if there's any consequence for any of this, they're definitely going to push for a fine, because the last thing he would want in the middle of the season or at any time, honestly, is 180 days in county jail. So that's the marijuana side of it. Now, there's also the unlawful carrying of a weapon. So basically, there are certain rules, contrary to popular belief, there are rules that guide how you may possess a weapon in Texas. I know everybody thinks it's just the wild, wild west and everybody's just running around with guns all the time. Yeah, the people here do definitely value their Second Amendment rights. However, there are rules, there are laws, there are parameters. So in this case, the officers reported that they saw a handgun on his back seat and it was not in a holster. So that thing about not being a holster, not being holstered, that is the issue. So had it been in a holster, it could be on the back seat, or it could be somewhere else in his vehicle if it's unholstered, like a glove compartment or a console. But because it was both unholstered and on the back seat in plain view, that's where he got into trouble. Um, so I know most outlets honestly have been reporting it correctly, but there's this assumption when an athlete ends up with drugs and weapons charges that, oh, they're violent, oh, they're out here doing crazy stuff. But in this case, and maybe this is my experience in this case, because like I'm just like, okay, this is basic stuff, but I also grew up around brothers and male cousins. And so, like, I have a brother who has dealt with literally these exact same charges. So when I started reading into the details of it, I'm like, oh, he had a little bit of weed and a gun on the back seat. That happens. Um, and I know the hope by a lot of people is like, well, he's an athlete. He should be a role model and he should know better. He should consider his future. He's also a young man. It happens. And so like when these guys need to be defended for something good, I'm always like, we have to remember that they're human. In this case, I'm like, we have to remember that they're human. So those are the details of the charges. Oh, I didn't go into the possible punishments for unlawful carrying. Da-da-da. I actually don't see them here, honestly. So I'm not sure, but I want to say that it's a fine. So I think in either case, it's likely that he'll be dealing with a fine. Now, what was also reported with this story was the fact that he was apparently driving 95 miles per hour in a 70-mile-per-hour zone. And so I just want to put this out there. This happened in Allen, Texas, and I need people to understand something about driving through this part of Texas. And this could honestly apply to like several parts of Texas, but I'm gonna just speak on my own experience. I'm not going to assume what he was doing or what was going through his head, but I'm someone who spends a lot of time on the road out here, right? Nobody drives a speed limit. So if you are in a zone that is 70 miles per hour, the slowest you will see someone going is 75 miles per hour. And a lot of times, not even that slow. I'm going to be real. There have been times I've gotten all the way in the right lane and I try to do the respectable no more than 5 miles over the speed limit. So I'm in a 70, I'm going 74, 75, and motherfuckers are on my bumper. Okay. So my theory is that it has something to do with the distance. Like, there are so many places that you end up having to go that will take 30 minutes to an hour. And if it's been a long day and you've been doing that all day, or if you just are trying to get home or get somewhere, sometimes those long drives can just start to feel like a lot. So that's one thing. And just to put it out there, the reason why I'm saying this is because I don't want the picture to be painted that KaVontae Turpin is some drug using, gun wielding, crazy person on the road. Most of what he's done is like very typical, and especially when it comes to the driving, very, very typical. So it's like on the roads out here, if you're in a 70-mile-per-hour zone, you're probably going to see most people going like 80 miles per hour. And so here's something that's happened to me a lot. I might be on one side of the interstate. I'm looking at my GPS. I realize I need to get over 2 lanes, sometimes more, because there are some interstates, highways that are that big. And I'm looking in my side mirror to see who's coming up next to me so I can change lanes. And you realize everybody is fucking speeding, right? And so it really gets to the point sometimes where if you don't speed up, it feels less safe than if you're going the speed limit or if you try to slow down. Like if you try to slow down, it's going to feel like you're basically an obstacle. Somebody is going to slam into the back of your car. Um, so a lot of times it's, especially if you're like, I'm just going to go with the flow of traffic, you're going to end up speeding up. And so if you're already going 80 miles per hour, your exit is coming up in a couple of miles and you're like, all right, I either need to like get over now or I need to pass somebody. Yes, it is very easy to end up going 90, 95 miles per hour, even just for a short distance so you can pass someone, get ahead, change lanes, and get to your exit. So I say that to say, like, there was no report that he was like reckless driving. It doesn't sound like he hit anybody or caused any accidents, which I have seen. I've seen a lot of accidents on these roads. I've seen people do stupid things that cause accidents. I personally was sideswiped by someone who was literally racing someone else on an interstate. There was a BMW convention here one weekend. Motherfuckers was on the fucking interstate street racing. So anyway, I say all that to say I've been in situations where I was either going with the flow of traffic or trying to make a traffic decision and just found myself going 80, 85 miles per hour. So I can totally see how somebody might end up going 90, 95, trying to pass someone or get around someone. So those are mainly the details that I wanted to get to. So just a quick recap for anyone who just joined. Um, one, less than 2 ounces of marijuana. Two, the gun was just unholstered. That was the issue. Three, 95 and a 70. Not that weird here. Very typical. And this could go to trial later. This could go to trial later. So we could hear more about this at a later date. I'm gonna take a quick look at y'all's comments and see what we're talking about. What is up, Clement and Sadiqa? It's good to see y'all. Um, I appreciate the people who joined me late more than y'all know. Clement says these professional athletes never learn that you aren't above the law, i.e., drinking under the influence, having marijuana, carrying guns, etc. Once you break a rule, most of the time is in community. I can understand that perspective. Like I said, I think because of my experiences with my brothers, I don't look at it as an athlete who thinks he's above the law. I look at it as an athlete who did something hella irresponsible in his position. Because like my brothers do this mess, but they also live in smaller cities and they also have less to lose if we're being real. Um, so while it is kind of typical shit for a young guy his age, um, it's I would also hope that athletes would be more responsible for their own sake. Because they didn't say that he was intoxicated. So we don't know that he had smoked the marijuana, that he was high while driving, or anything like that. We just know he had it. We just know he had a gun. So to me, having weed, having a gun, all that shit is like normal. All that shit is normal. Speeding on the interstate in North Texas, normal. So it's like I'm just looking at all this shit is normal shit. But yo, KaVontae, you are an athlete. You have a special position. Don't put that shit in jeopardy. Don't give them a reason. Especially like knowing how sometimes these traffic stops go. You get pulled over. Next thing you know, you getting beat up or shot or like having more charges thrown on you for no reason. Just don't put yourself in that position. So on that note, Clement, I definitely feel you. Sadiqa said, KT, if he did not have a weed, he would not have gotten arrested for the weed. I won't argue with you there. Clement goes on. Oh, that was a continuation. Community service and or fine for the first time. Once you become a repeater, you are looking at suspended license or jail time, depending on the severity of the crime. Yes. Clement also says, at Sadiqa, funny how people don't understand that weed is illegal unless it is used for medicinal recreation to alleviate pain for injury. I think they're well aware that it's illegal. um, and I don't know what the current status here. Like I know here they have that synthetic bullshit that just keep that shit away from me. Um, but yeah, considering the growth of the synthetic marijuana industry, um, and just how people handle having the illegal version of marijuana, I do think people are aware. I just think they don't care. I think they don't expect to get caught. They don't expect to get pulled over. Because I'm telling you, I spend a lot of time on these streets. I see people who actually are driving recklessly, who are speeding all the time, and people don't really get pulled over like that. So I don't know what happened here. I think it was late at night, so it could be that there were fewer people on the road. And that's another thing that I want to mention. I think some people will look at the time and assume there was nobody on the road. Like, no, I have definitely been on North Texas roads midnight, 1 a.m., and there's people on the road. So like my story about like, oh, you might need to speed up to pass people. Yeah, that can happen at like up to 2 and 3 in the morning. Like it's always traffic out here. Um Sadiqa said, carrying a licensed gun is legal in Texas. Yes. Like I said, it was not in a holster. That was the issue. And Clement got it right. You can carry it if it's holstered. If it's not, you got to put it in a glove compartment or something like that. And yeah, so he had a couple of options there. Take your unholstered gun, put it in the glove compartment, put it in the console somewhere else, or if you want to keep it on the back seat for some reason, put it in a holster. Um, I don't know why he's running around with an unholstered gun on the back seat. That just sounds hella dangerous. The only other possibility, and this, if he can prove this, is something that could like eliminate the charge, is there actually is a caveat for if you didn't know the gun was there. Um, and so I've had people leave their phone on my back seat and I don't see it because the interior of my car is black. So if it's at night, they don't see it. So if he can somehow prove that, hey, somebody left that there and I didn't know it was there, that could work in his favor. But otherwise, yeah, know the law, holster your fucking gun if you want to leave it on the back seat in plain view. Um, so yeah, that is that. And if y'all have any more questions about the case, like I said, I didn't pull up the document that I found because his address was on it, and I didn't notice. But there really wasn't much on it. There really wasn't much on it except, like I said, it said the case is closed. It's really not. And then the details that we just discussed. So now y'all know the facts of the case in case you're wondering about any suspect reporting that may or may not have happened. So moving on, um, the Dallas Wings lost tonight. And I won't talk much about the game because it was a game against the Chicago Sky. And they're like, I think some people expected them to win because a couple of games ago, the Dallas Wings played the Phoenix Mercury, the second best team in the WNBA, and they were phenomenal. And they accomplished that. They accomplished the win without four, four of their best starters, and those are people who are still injured. So you might know these names: Arike Ogunbowale, Dejanay Carrington, Tyasha Harris, and Maddie Segrist were all missing during that game against Mercury. It was at home, and they were playing with a roster of 8 people. So people went into that game expecting the Wings to not do well, and they showed out. Those rookies showed out. They did an amazing job. Um, but they really haven't been able to sustain that. I'm gonna put a pause in that to answer Clement's question. Any updates on cases you covered on previous live streams? Not right now. There will be some soon, I believe, but right now everything else is pretty much the same. So with the Fox News case, it's still being settled out of court, from what I understand. With it being settled out of court, um, I don't know if we'll get an update once everything is resolved. But I am looking to see if any of those dates change, to see if it might end up going back to court. I have been looking to see if there's anything else filed related to it, but so far I've seen nothing. And then in terms of the Zion case, no updates. And who did we talk about last week? Last week we talked about Kelvin Joseph. No updates there either. So um, nothing there. So, just going back to the Wings real quick. A couple of games ago, they beat the Phoenix Mercury. They did it with a short roster. They did it without their starters, and everybody was excited. And people were like, oh my goodness, they figured something out. And here's the thing: the Wings did figure something out. I'm not calling them out to say that, oh, they actually haven't figured it out. They were the same old Wings. They figured something out that day. The problem is teams watch film. Teams watch film. And so what they figured out during that game that got them through that game was, one, that JJ Quinterly is a motherfucking beast who can fly, which they already knew that, but the way she just came out of her shell, it almost seemed like with Arike and Dejanay off the floor and her knowing it was all on her, it's almost like it freed her up to just be like, I'm gonna do what I do. I don't have to defer to anybody. I'm gonna lead this offense how I want to lead this offense. And she did that shit. Her and Zaza, Kyla, they all did great. Wait, no, not Kyla. Zaza, sorry, I'm gonna leave the roster. Anyway, y'all get the idea. I'll edit that out later. Um, they did a phenomenal job. But here's the thing. Two things. One of the strategies that they used in that game was, on the defensive end, they were less aggressive in their matchups, right? So they weren't so much getting in people's faces, but they were so aggressive on the boards. And essentially, with them only having 8 people, they were trying to stay out of foul trouble. They were trying to stay out of foul trouble. So that's why they weren't really being super physical when it came to their matchups. But once that ball was out of the opposition's hands, they were attacking it. and that definitely worked in their favor. I don't think the Mercury were ready for that. And so the Wings were able to take advantage. And it seemed to throw the Mercury off to the point where they weren't even shooting the ball well. So that was something else that worked to the Wings' advantage during that game. The Mercury, they were not shooting well. The Wings, on the other hand, got off to a phenomenal start. That great start is actually what sustained them through the whole game and made it so that they could keep the lead. Because if you were watching that game, the field goal percentage for the Wings went down each quarter. So that big 12-point lead, I think at one point it was 18 points. Basically, they were just able to sustain that. The Mercury were never able to catch up. The Mercury took the lead one time in that game, and it was by like 2 points. Other than that, they were fast, they were aggressive, not physically, but on their own goals. Like they were taking shots, they were fortunately making the shots, and they were getting those rebounds. So they just had the ball more than the Mercury did. But then they went to Phoenix. And Phoenix was like, I'm not about to have y'all out here thinking y'all better than us. Like, we about to baptize these rookies. And they did. So the Wings were not able to beat the Mercury 2 games in a row. Then you come to today against the Chicago Sky. And the Chicago Sky, before this game, they were actually ranked lower than the Wings. This has not been a good season for the Sky. So people are like, oh, we've seen this team do well, so they can win this game. This can be another game for the Wings. And it ended up being a loss. And what I need people to understand is playing on a short roster like that, going on the road, having all these games in a row, eventually that's going to catch up with you. And so, there are people who are looking at the game and they're trying to blame Coach Koclanes. They're, trying to blame Maisha Hines-Allen, who did do some crazy shit during today's game, but I'm not about to say she needs to be like kicked off the roster or anything like that. They're finding someone to blame, and I'm like, yo, this is literally a numbers game. They're playing with a roster of 8 for the third game in a row. 2 of the last 3 games have been on the road. They're fucking tired. They're worn out. And Maisha Hines-Allen, she technically might not be 100% healed, She had an injury going into the Mercury game. And it was speculated that she was not even going to play that game. And then right before the game, they said that she was going to be available. I suspect that part of the reason for that was that they needed her. They needed bodies, because playing a game with 8 is hard. Playing a game with 7, that is damn near impossible. Even just from a foul standpoint, like how can you effectively play offense with that, or play defense with that few people? You know what I'm saying? You have to be so careful just so you don't run out of players. But yeah, you've got rookies who are still trying to get into WNBA shape, because we've heard several rookies talk about just the pace of the game being faster, physicality being increased, aggressiveness being higher than what they face in college. So they're still trying to get into WNBA shape. And now they're having to play 30 plus minutes a game. That is bananas. That is bananas. And for them to have to do that for the third game in a row, yes, they're tired. So, yes, they're looking a little bit different than they looked during that game against the Mercury. And so, is it disappointing? Yes, because you've got Paige Beckers. People are waiting for her to get into the league. So talented. You've got JJ Quinterly, who's just like looking phenomenal. And she looked phenomenal in that win against the Mercury. And now, not that she doesn't look phenomenal anymore, but now somebody was like, oh yeah, other teams watch film, they've seen it. I'm like, even if they didn't watch film, just the highlights from that game, the way people were talking about how she played, they would have gotten word about JJ Quinterly. And so they are playing defense on her way differently. They're making it even harder for her. They're like, nah, we know what you can do now. You're not about to fly over our heads and get all these points. So rough season for the Wings. It's definitely a learning season, not only for the players, but also for the coach. I'm not as mad at Coach Koclanes as I was previously. Um, I'm still not like, oh, he's the greatest coach ever. Definitely not. But in this period of time right now, dealing with a roster of 8 people, most of them being rookies, all of them being new to playing together. None of these people, these are not like returning vets who have played together. They are still learning how to play together. And they can't even really get used to the lineups because people keep getting hurt. So in a way, I kind of feel for him, and I know there's some Wings fans who don't want to hear me say that, but that is a tough spot to be in as a new head coach, trying to figure this out and still dealing with fans who expect the team to show up and look a certain way, and you're just like, we don't even really know what to expect from one night to the next. I'm gonna take a look at some of y'all's comments, and then we're gonna get into more of the Wings story. Clement said, by the way, Phoenix beat the best team in the NBA tonight in Phoenix, 79-71. Chicago outplayed Dallas tonight, 100%. And here's the thing about the Chicago versus Dallas game. There were people on Twitter talking about like, what's going on with the rebounds? When are we gonna get a good rebounder? I'm like, if you watch the Wings against the Mercury, they can rebound. But I'm just like, they're playing a team with someone on the team who's literally known as the best rebounder in the league. So in terms of numbers and in terms of stats, no, that rebound stat ain't gonna look the same. Like, Angel Reese literally just trademarked a word that refers to her tendency to get the ball, like me bounds. Like, so I feel like when you're playing a game against a team with a person who trademarked the word me bounds, that's not really the time to criticize your team for not getting as many boards as they usually do. Just putting that out there. Um, but yes, Clement, no. Phoenix, I'm super happy for Phoenix, especially with DeWanna Bonner joining the Mercury. I feel like there's no better way for them to welcome her to the team and for her to present herself to the fans, or reintroduce herself, I should say, than with a statement win like this. And what I like about it is that, so, all right, here's the thing. Here's the thing. DeWanna Bonner went through some bullshit when it came to her situation with the Indiana Fever, because she said that she wasn't playing for personal reasons, and there was all sorts of speculation about her not being a team player, about her not being a quitter. It's almost like people forgot that the Indiana Fever literally just had has it even been a year? The Indiana Fever just had a situation where another one of their players had to shut down, and I'm talking about Aaliyah Boston, had to shut down her social media because of harassment that she was receiving from Caitlin Clark fans when the team wasn't performing well. So we have a documented history of the fans of Indiana harassing players and just being so nasty that they literally can't take it. And so I'm like, you can't tell me that it's a coincidence that DeWanna Bonner shut down her social media around the same time. And by shut down, I mean it's private. I don't know if she's still posting, but she turned her X account to private around the same time that she decided that she couldn't play for personal reasons, and then eventually decided that she didn't want to play with the Fever at all, and then left and said, oh, it wasn't a good fit. And now everybody wants to act like we don't remember what just happened with another Black star player on the Indiana Fever, right? And so there's just all the speculation, because she didn't immediately find a team. The Indiana Fever waived her. She didn't immediately find a team. And there's all this speculation about like, oh, nobody wants her. It might be over for DeWanna Bonner. And not only does she find a team, but she ends up going back to the team where she already won 2 championships, where she made a splash as a rookie. And then the first game with that team, they end up beating the number 1 team in the WNBA. It was such a moment of DeWanna Bonner using her skills to say, let me remind y'all who the fuck I am. Y'all keep saying this is going to be my last season, and I don't know if it will be. I don't know if it won't be. But like all this bullshit about me not being a team player, me not having it anymore. Okay, I got something for y'all. I can show you better than I can tell you. And she did that. And I love that for her. I love that for her. So, um, let's see. Sadiq is going on a rant about weed in the comments. But getting back to the Wings, yeah. So something else that I want to address is this idea that, oh, this is proof that the starters aren't needed because the team looks better without the starters. So let me address that because I feel like people are getting the wrong idea by how this team is playing without Enrique, without Dejanay, without Maddie. And there's this assumption that those players must have been holding the team back. It's not that simple. It's not that cut and dry. What can sometimes happen is that there's just a different chemistry, a different speed, a different pace. This is not to say that the starters aren't good or that the team is somehow better off without them. This just means that this group of players figured out something together, maybe because of past experiences with one another, maybe because of a similar style that they have that works together that doesn't necessarily apply when the starters are on the court. That doesn't mean the starters aren't good or that they're holding the team back. It just means that literally the circumstances, the situation is different. It's kind of like if you have a group of friends and y'all have inside jokes. And so when y'all get together, y'all laugh, y'all talk, y'all have these inside jokes, y'all kind of have an understanding, you're used to the vibe. And then you get a couple of other new friends to come and join y'all. The vibe might be a little bit different. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with those new people. They just don't joke the same way. And so it might take a little while for like all the personalities to mesh. I think that's all that's happening here. And I think once the starters do come back, I think it's actually going to be more of a synergistic situation where the sum becomes, or where the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. And I say that because right now, the rookies are learning so much about the pace of the game. They're learning so much about what it's like to play against these veterans and against other teams where people are used to playing together. Um, I feel like all of that is going to be useful and actually lend itself to reincorporating the vets, not be a detriment. Now, on that note, I had been looking for some post game sound from the Wings, and it wasn't posted before, but it looks like someone did put up a video of Coach Koclanes, his post game sound. I don't know if the any of the players did anything. I haven't found anything yet, but I figured since we're all here, we can do a live reaction to what Coach Koclanes had to say and see what he thought about today's game. And yes, this is a live reaction. I haven't watched this yet.
In the first two games of this road trip, there's been a big shooting performance. Tonight was Rebecca Allen. Just what are some of the things that you saw from her that helped her have that big performance?
Yeah, I thought she got loose a little bit early. She moves well off the ball. I thought we tried a couple different things in terms of blocking and trailing and trying to be there on the catch, top blocking to be physical to get her off her spots. But I thought she was still able to get some separation. And then I thought too, some of it was our own, like the strong side corner kick three. So, some of that is self-inflicted as well. It's a combination. But yeah, we've got to be better. And you give them grace, right? That's three rookies out there who are living through this. Rebecca Allen is a veteran in this league, and they've been going up against Sammy Wickham is a veteran in this, right? Like these players, understand things and are able to move off the ball and have smarts about them that our rookies are learning and feeling and experiencing that firsthand. So the good thing is that they're going to be better for all these games and experiences, and I'm extremely confident that they're going to take it and be better.
I'm not gonna lie, I feel a little bit weird about me and Coach Koclanes echoing the same points, but I'm gonna just go with it. I'm not going to reject this moment too much, despite how I feel about him as a coach. We'll just go with it. We'll look at it as growth.
I liked how we guarded Ariel Atkins. Like that was the challenge coming in. It was, come on, can we guard Ariel and Rachel? And I thought we did a pretty good job on those two and limiting them. And then you let Allen get loose off the bench and have a big game, and here we are.
I'm curious about the other side of the ball. Like you did mention, it's a lot for the rookies. Like they're all learning a lot of things. Like tonight was a tough shooting performance. Just what are some of the things you saw from them in that regard, and then how helpful maybe could it be long term that they're able to have a lot on their plate with injuries?
Yeah, again, they're only going to be better for living through these experiences and getting these experiences. But when you look at it, like,
Agreed.
that's a lot of minutes that these players have never logged, and what we're asking
Yes.
them to do, and to shoulder the weight of scoring as well. I thought we were in attack mode. I thought we were getting pieces of the paint, and I thought, we were short a bunch on some of those shots that I've seen Isaiah make a ton of those. Page as well, like lots of makeable shots. JJ even too, just getting pieces of the paint. So yeah, well, when your starting guard group has the shooting night that they did, it's tough. It's tough to win games. But we took 20 more shots than them. But they'll be better for it.
Okay, so since he mentioned the shooting night that they had, I just want to look at the stats real quick because I haven't really looked at the box score. So, JJ, 15 points, 5 of 13. Eesh. Uh, Paige Beckers, 17 points, 5 of 18. Okay, I see what he's saying. Uh, Lee Uru actually did good, 18 points, 7 of 9. She was shooting some threes at the end, and there were some people who were like, yeah, Lee making the threes. And I get the excitement over her making the 3-point shots. However, I just didn't like the setup of the offense with everybody being around the perimeter, nobody really down low. And I don't know if that was a plan. I don't know if that was something that they were like, okay, what we're going to do is in transition, everybody, get around the perimeter and set up the offense that way, as opposed to trying to get under the basket. Or if that was a sign that everybody was just tired. And that's just how it played out. That's how it happened. I don't know what happened there. I personally didn't like the setup. I thought it was fortunate that Lee made those 3-pointers, maybe even luck, but I did not like that setup at all.
I'm curious what you saw from Lee tonight as well as
Yeah.
obviously with the 3-point shooting, but just overall, what did you like about her performance?
Yeah, I like inside out, right? She has the inside out, and today we saw the out, and just have to continue to find that balance with her. Her size around the rim is great. She'll continue to improve finishing around the rim, but when she's there, she's a great offensive rebounder and keeps things alive. But especially, with Cardoso and post players like that guarding her, to be able to pop her out to the perimeter and get her wide open threes, she's as good of a shooter as most people on our team too. So that's a
Facts.
fun weapon to have and be able to utilize. So we're exploring, right? Can we space the floor out a little more, go 5 out, open up the paint for the guards? So Lee and Luisa both provide that type of spacing consistently. So you saw some of that tonight.
And then I just had one last one. Uh, defensively, I know Paige and the other players as well. I mentioned like it's important to get the defense to travel. 2-8 on the road so far has been a tough record, but obviously teams will play better at home as well too. So how much of maybe like your own execution could be maybe improved, or any things that stand out to you in that regard when you're on the road?
Yeah, you have to give even more, right? There has to be an even higher level of intensity and discipline and focus and execution. So we're learning that firsthand. I thought in that Phoenix game it was some slippage early that allowed it. I thought tonight, I thought our start was way better. Our start was way better in terms of our compete and navigating actions. But yeah, we can't consistently let players go off like that. So when you're on the road, you've just got to have a different level of compete.
The fact that he mentioned intensity is kind of discouraging to me because I'm just like, I don't know when these starters are coming back, but to expect them to increase intensity when they're already playing on a short roster for the 3rd game in a row and traveling, yeah, we're gonna need a different strategy because, like, to be like, yeah, up the intensity. Like, no, they're worn the fuck out.
Ari on the Zoom.
Hi, Coach. Can you talk a little bit about the growth you've seen from JJ, both offensive and defensively, since training camp up until now?
Yep. Just getting more and more comfortable being a point guard. We're just, when she's on the floor here, our pace and our tempo is great. It allows P to be off the ball and move and put her in some different actions. So continuing to build that chemistry, but have just really enjoyed her growth as a point guard and understanding, when to just go and when to slow, and where's the mismatch, where's the action, who is it. So it's really fun for her to really start thinking the game and be able to help orchestrate it out there on the floor. And then defensively, yeah, she just gives phenomenal effort, can pick up 94 feet, and really gets her hands on a lot of balls. I know she was in some foul trouble today, but she gets some strips, and when you have somebody like that who can be the head of your defense, it's going to make everybody else can feed off of that, and everybody else can really play harder with that energy because.
So I'm glad that he mentioned pacing there, because I think that speaks to the point that I was making earlier about reincorporating the veterans back onto the wings. Because one of the things that can happen, and this is just an example, I don't know if this is something that's happening with them, but he's right. JJ can really pick up the pace. If you've watched how the offense looks whenever she's leading it, especially if she's the one who gets the rebound, um, they go fast to the other side of the court. And so what sometimes happens is, if you're going that fast, but you haven't built up the chemistry with your teammates for everybody to know where everybody's going, you might end up with a couple of people, and in this case the veterans, who are kind of like, okay, wait, where is everybody, where are y'all going, where are we setting up? um and that was especially an issue, I think, earlier in the season, when there was an emphasis on what they called this free flowing offense. It just wasn't working out well, and I don't think it's as free flowing now, but I do still think whatever they decided to implement, they're still getting used to. And so, like, if you look at a lot of these situations, a lot of times when JJ is flying down the court, it's usually Zaza with her. And I think Paige is just used to kind of setting up wherever. So basically, I feel like the three of them are all in a position to where they can keep that pace and it doesn't throw them off, because they're not all accounting for where everybody else is. They're accounting for themselves. And JJ seems to be able to figure out whether she should take the shot or get the ball to someone else. I just don't feel like that system has been worked out with the vets yet. So we'll see. We'll see. But I feel like that's one of the things that's making a big difference between what the wings look like with the vets in the game versus what they're dealing with now with this short roster led by rookies.
The point guard is hounding the ball like that. So really enjoying JJ's growth.
Hey, Brad.
Yes, hi, Coach.
You look
How are
tired.
you? Haley Jones coming to the team now. Again, great player, a great talent. Had some experience in Atlanta. Can you speak of her play in the 15 minutes that she played tonight and what you can see with her potential?
Yeah, just love Haley's high IQ and versatility. Got here late last night, and she did have a short stint with us before, but to be able to just plug her in at the wing, play a little bit of four, initiated offense at the one. So just excited for her versatility. That can really help, especially when you're down in numbers and you need to just kind of plug and play. But I like her ability to facilitate. I like her IQ. Had a couple nice takes too with some good footwork. So crafty around the rim some, and then just got to continue with everybody else to improve our team defense and find ways to get stops on the other end.
Hey, Rob, if you want to close us out.
Sure thing. Rob Tiongson from the Podium Finish. Coach, you've been managing a variety of different lineups to find the combinations that can really thrive on the court. Given how young this group is and how much they're learning on the fly, how do you feel about the team's progression and growth at this point of the season, as you are establishing roles for players like Paige being off ball or JJ or Isaiah at the point?
Yeah, again, there's just been lots of inconsistencies with our roster, right? And who's available in the player. So it's just been a lot of different, plug and play. Who is it tonight? Who is it tonight? But with all that being said, still just confident in this group and excited for the future and the experiences that they're all getting and the comfort that they're growing and the connectivity that they're growing out there on both sides of the ball. I know we haven't really seen that come to fruition on the defensive end, but each game we're going to get better and learn from it and find that level of physicality that we need to be able to dictate and disrupt teams. So encouraged.
All right, thanks, everybody.
I think it's interesting that he's encouraged. Only because, like I said, they're playing with a short roster led by rookies, and he seems to be emphasizing the need to increase intensity and increase physicality, and that just does not sound like a sustainable strategy, um, based on what they're dealing with tonight. I mean, like, Paige took at least one hard hit tonight and fell to the ground, and you can just, like, feel the Wings fan base collectively holding their breath. The last thing they can afford is to lose another player, much less Paige Beckers. Um, and so when you talk about increasing physicality and intensity, you're talking about increasing the odds of things like that happening, as well as increasing the odds of them dealing with foul trouble, as well as them increasing the odds of just getting exhausted. It just seems like they're already teetering on that point. Hey, Chris, how's it going? Thanks for joining us. Um, So, yeah, we'll see what happens. The next game, I believe the next game for the Wings is against the Las Vegas Aces here at home. Let me double check, and then I'll let y'all know. Okay, so they have a game Sunday in Indiana. Oh boy. And then the next game after that is on Wednesday here at home against the Aces. So yeah, those are gonna be some tough games, and like I said, we'll see how long it takes for the veterans to come back. That's gonna make a big difference, even just in terms of just like playing time and allowing these players to get rest and not put so much wear and tear on their bodies. And yeah, they're in a tough spot. So that's why, like, yes, they're losing, but it's so hard for me to be critical with them having such a small, inexperienced roster. All right. So we talked about KaVontae Turpin. We talked about the Dallas Wings. We talked about DeWanna Bonner. When I started the show and said that I was annoyed with the news cycle, pretty much I was talking about things like the bashing of DeWanna Bonner. I was talking about just all the legal cases that are coming up. Um, I don't know. I don't like when my team is losing. I don't like when there's so much negativity in the news, and that just seems to be a big thing lately. Um, but nothing major is really going on other than that. I will say one other thing. Devin Booker signed a max contract, so good for him. But even in that case, I'm just like I'm so frustrated with how the roster of the Phoenix Suns has been managed. Um, so I'm gonna look more into that and kind of keep tabs because I haven't reported on the Suns in a while. But I am really interested in what the ownership is gonna do because here's the thing: the ownership made some kind of comment about, okay, you have to have a superstar to win championships. But I'm like, all right, you are signing your superstar Devin Booker to a max contract. But one, although he is a star of the Phoenix Suns, is he the type of star who can actually take them to a championship? As much as I love Devin I cannot answer yes to that question. I cannot say that when you think of a piece who can take a team, an NBA team, all the way, Devin Booker is who comes to mind. That's why they tried the experiment with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal in the first place. And I just feel like that was extremely misguided because you've got this supposed big three made up of three people who all typically have injury issues and none of them have leadership skills. What was the plan there? And so now you're dismantling that. You got rid of Kevin Durant. You're trying to get rid of Bradley Beal despite him having this no trade clause that he never should have had in the first place. And but like the pieces that you're getting in return for Kevin Durant, they say more rebuild than championship run. So like for the ownership of the Suns, I'm just like, what are you doing? Are you rebuilding or are you trying to go on a championship run? Because and sorry, I don't have the picture of the Wings up, and I'm talking about the Suns. I don't have a picture of the Suns right now. So I wasn't planning on talking about this, but here's what I But you need to figure out which way you're going because if you're trying to rebuild, then yes, it does make sense to trade Devin Booker the way some Phoenix Suns fans have suggested. But if you're trying to make a championship run, then all the decisions you're making about how you're putting this team together should be different. And honestly, right now for the Suns, I feel like it would be easier for them to rebuild and let Devin Booker go to a team where he would actually be an asset instead of trying to build a championship roster around Devin Booker when the decisions that you made as a new ownership stunted his growth. Had you made the decisions, maybe he would be a championship caliber star right now. But instead took all the pieces away from him that were boosting him up, that were allowing him to practice his leadership skills, that were teaching him leadership skills like Paul. Um, you got rid of Monty Williams, but your next coaching options haven't really been that much better. Like you basically took the 2021 version of Devin Booker that was, on the verge of a championship and was growing and growing, and then got to 2023, and then you came in and you were like, um, yeah, you don't have the skills of a championship NBA player, but we're just going to pretend like you're ready. And it's just been one convoluted decision after another ever since then. And I don't think you've done Devin Booker any favors. I don't think you've done Phoenix Suns as a team any favors. Everything has been questionable. And Devin Booker seemed like he didn't want to be traded because like there were teams saying like he should be traded. So of course Devin Booker was asked. He said he didn't want to be traded, but honestly, I think he should want to be traded. Um, but I don't blame him for believing in himself. That's where this confidence came from. But if we were to just look at the situation practically, if he were to go to another team where he was more of a supporting star, he would do a lot better. And then the Phoenix Suns can just take their pieces, they can rebuild, and I won't say everybody would be happy, but in the long run, I think that's what would be best for everyone. All right. So now we've talked about KaVontae Turpin, the Dallas Wings, DeWanna and the Phoenix Suns, and Devin Booker. I don't really have anything else except for this one thing I just wanted to make y'all aware of. So I'm not on Twitter tonight. And I did an announcement on Twitter that I would not be live on Twitter. I don't know if I'm going to have a Twitter account for much longer. If y'all aren't in the loop, basically there was a situation where Brock, the Twitter AI, was recently asked a question about violence, like political violence in the U.S. And its response pointed to the idea that people who consider themselves right leaning have been more violent as quantified since 2016. People didn't like that. And someone tagged Elon Musk and was like, hey, it's saying da da da. And Elon Musk said something like, okay, it's parroting legacy media. I'll fix it. Well, since he fixed it, it has literally been like promoting Hitler, like literally. It called itself, I've used the word petty, but basically the AI called itself Hitler. And so, like, I was already frustrated with Twitter because, my platform was going for a while. And then the algorithm kind of changed to where if you aren't spewing or just saying some incredibly divisive stuff, even in sports. Like it's not enough to be analytical or report on stories or have a take. It's like you gotta be saying whatever audience you're talking to, you have to be saying some really divisive shit to get any kind of real engagement, unless people are just checking for you. So I do appreciate those of you who do check my content. Clement, Chris, Sadika, I appreciate y'all. But yeah, it's like unless you're being divisive, the algorithm is like, we don't care. And so not only did my following stop growing, I actually, lost a few followers. Um, and I kind of figured that would happen. People leave the platform, whatever. It's not like I've lost like hundreds. It's been like a few. I've just noticed the number going down. But I just like I was paying for the features that are supposed to boost you, but I was paying for them so that I could go live because basically without that subscription level, you can't go live on Twitter. I can't broadcast live on Twitter. And so that was the main reason I was paying for it. I'm like, so not only is it not doing this boosting thing that it's supposed to do, the revenue share really isn't worth it. Partially because it's not boosting me, because I'm not divisive, um, and my following isn't even growing. So it's like, why am I paying for this? And then you're gonna come out with like this Hitler stuff, and I'm like, I definitely can't support that. So I ended my subscription, but I'm really debating whether I want to have an account on there at all. There are a lot of really good conversations that still happen on X, especially when it comes to sports that don't have big followings on other platforms like WNBA. Um, as toxic as X is places to connect with other WNBA fans, honestly. Um, so I don't know. We'll see. But just know, if you're watching this, I won't be going live on Twitter anymore. All my lives will be on YouTube. If I keep going live on Facebook or if I start going live on TikTok, I'll let you know. But for right now, everything is right here. So once again, like I always say at the end of every show, especially when I'm reminded, just make sure you subscribe, turn your notifications on so you don't miss anything. Hit that like button, share this episode if it was good, and I'll catch y'all next week. So catch me Tuesday, 5 p.m. when I do TX Radio, and then Wednesday nights when I catch y'all after work. So thanks for joining. This has been another episode of Digital Sports. I'm your host, Jasmine A, and I'm out.
You only think of us as a bitches when you intimidated. Put it that way. I think
People
that's
look at a woman and she's an
so
aggressive
sad.
woman who's out to get what she wants to get. You know what I'm saying? Ambitious, and they want to say, you know, when a male is assertive, this is what he wants. He's looked at as a strong male, but yet when I get it, you know, I'm a bitch.
Exactly.
And if that's what I gotta be, exactly, to get what I want and to make it somewhere, then I'll just be that.